Hello and welcome to Dingoes Ate My Podcast. I'm Paul.
And I'm Dave.
And this week we are discussing the episode Lullaby. Anyway, let's start off with discussing video games. So, between this episode and the next one, there's quite a gap, so we've got a lot of stuff to get through, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on anything.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm going to skip a bunch of stuff that's not terribly important. So on the 19th, there were two games. So on the Game Boy Advance, we got Wario Land 4. And also on the 19th, if that wasn't your thing and you had a PS2, you could pick up WWF SmackDown, Just Bring It. Which apparently is not a big thing for Dave. But I enjoyed this game, although it's not the best of the SmackDown games.
Yeah.
It was a few games away from being the best one, which is Here Comes the Pain. Anyway, November 20th on PC, we got Return to Castle Wolfenstein.
Okay.
You familiar with any of the Wolfenstein games?
Only vaguely. Mostly have hintings of most of the more recent stuff, but not too knowledgeable with anything from the past.
Okay, fair enough. November 21st, we got Star Wars Episode 1 Jedi Power Battles on the Game Boy Advance, which was just kind of like a standard side-scroller. We're going to skip ahead over a bunch of stuff here because I just don't think it's terribly relevant.
The typical sports game release, other tie-in with a TV show and or movie that was coming out at the time.
Yeah, and there's like a Twisted Metal Twisted Metal Small Brawl on the 26th, which came out on the PS1, but
The Sweeties, they tried, but after the last number one, they just could never find the magic again.
Twisted Metal Black was good. I think that came out around, maybe that was next year, like 2002. That game was quite good, though. Anyway, December 3rd on the PS2, Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. You played any of the Baldur's Gate games?
No, it's kind of a case of it's the one particular one that I know of and recognize, but never touched it.
Okay. December 3rd on the PS2 as well, Jak and Daxter: The Precursor Legacy. I think that's the first Jak and Daxter, isn't it?
It is, and it is the fun.
I've never played any of the Jak and Daxter games.
Well, honestly, as it is, it's good enough for the series that it was, but it's not surprising that it only went in a trilogy and a racing game.
Yeah, they re-released them on like the PS4, didn't they?
They did the couple hiccups that come with bringing some of those things over.
Right, okay. Also on December 3rd, Nintendo decided to just wreck everyone's shit this day. Because they released two games.
Duly noted.
Both obviously for the GameCube, because it had just launched. December 3rd, Pikmin.
Understandable, but what arrived with it?
Well, I mean, it's one of these like obscure Nintendo games that probably nobody's ever heard of. It's a little game called Super Smash Bros. Melee.
So, the day that Nintendo dropped the nuke, even if they didn't know it.
They dropped two nukes because Pikmin did really well, especially at launch.
That is true. It was one of the particular ones that were kind of like, hey, new IP, supposed fanciness.
Well, yeah, it was advertised as a new IP, and it was a new IP by Miyamoto.
Yes.
So that was going to do well no matter what.
Yeah.
The next day, on December 4th, on the PS1, we got a little game called Mega Man X6, which...
Oh, that poor sweetie. It never stood a chance against those two.
Not against Pikmin and Melee. December 7th, Cell Damage came to the GameCube, which, again, it was fucked on arrival because it came out right after Pikmin and Melee.
Yeah.
And I guess the final one we'll talk about on December 9th. I'm shocked that this was actually a thing, but apparently a game called The Flintstones Big Trouble in Bedrock came out on the Game Boy Advance.
It wouldn't be super surprising. There's always kind of the mild influence of the old timey cartoons floating around at some point. It's mostly just a question of anyone reaching into the ether and being like, okay, let's use these IPs for things.
I guess the license must have been like dirt cheap or something.
Hmm.
Alrighty, so Dave, any idea what the number one song in America was this week?
Hmm. Again, around this time. Eh, probably for safest bet, probably be the same from last week.
It is surprisingly, it is still the same song. It is "Family Affair" by Mary J. Uh, Blige.
Hmm.
We're getting closer and closer to some Canadian boys taking over the charts, though. That's all I'm gonna say.
Duly noted.
And the number one movie in America this week, Dave. Any guesses?
Movie wise. After that one. Then it's of course the question of how much phenomenon, if it stuck around or if it was topped by something. Can't immediately think of anything around that year when it was released. For safest bet, I'll stick with the last week's pick of the Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
It is still Harry Potter. Yes, yes, it is. Um, yeah, it's almost like Harry Potter was a really popular movie or something. I don't know.
Yeah, because it kind of had a book series and a whole bunch of fans that came from that.
Well, yeah, and I mean, yeah, it was a friggin' massive deal at the time.
It was a thing.
Yes,
And
yes, it
it's
was.
technically still a thing, but for different reasons.
I mean, have you seen the Fantastic Beasts movies?
Intrigued to see them, but only seen clips of the first one, I believe it was.
Okay, I've seen the first two. I haven't seen the third one. The first
Hmm.
one is genuinely quite good. The second one is kind of average, and I haven't seen the third. But the first one, I was like, oh, this is a really cool series. I can't wait to see what the sequel does. And then they're like, oh no, it's just going to be more like Harry Potter world building bollocks. And I was like, but I want to see the guy go around and like capture monsters and stuff because that was cool.
Actually, see him doing his job.
Yeah, like actually writing like the textbook and stuff. I'm like, that's a cool idea. Do that. And then they're like, nah, we're just gonna make it all about Voldemort and stuff.
Appealing to the particular crowd that is the loudest.
Yeah, unfortunately. Alrighty, so let us get into the episode.
Indeed.
Okay. So, we start off with Holtz capturing Angel in the hotel and starting to talk with him. But he doesn't believe anything Angel says. At Wolfram and Hart, Morrow tells Lila that she's going to be the one who will get in trouble for this whole mess, since they've got no word from their commandos in a while and have lost visual. Lila heads over to the hotel to see what is happening and ends up getting caught by one of Holtz's men, who thinks she is Darla. Lila tells Holtz that Angel now has a soul and must atone for his past misdeeds, which Holtz treats with more. Well, he believes her a little bit more.
Hmm.
Angel uses Lila's distraction of Holtz to grab a wayward grenade that had belonged to one of the dead commandos, and he escapes, with Lila and Holtz suffering no major injuries. Lila finds the scroll and brings it back to Wolfram and Hart for study by their scholar. Dun dun dun.
Hmm.
Holtz thinks upon what Darla and Angel did to his family when he returned to find their dead bodies. It turns out that they had not killed his daughter. At first overjoyed, Holtz sees the bloody bite mark on her neck and realizes the truth, that she had been turned into a vampire. He sits and thinks, and he sings a lullaby over and over. When the dawn comes, he leaves the house carrying his daughter, kicking and screaming and begging not to be taken outside. He hurls her into the sunlight and watches as she is destroyed. Which is a fucking great sequence, but it's fucking horrible.
in most cases, the fact that Angelus and Darla went ahead and did that, that's pretty bad. And then turning his only daughter into a vampire is just like, ha ha ha, this cake doesn't need any more frosting, sweeties. He doesn't need this.
Meanwhile, at the car, Darla gets frustrated at Wesley's attempt to teach her Lama's breathing techniques, and she doesn't need to breathe.
You know, vampire and all.
She hits them, knocking them all away from her. When they get ready to leave again, they are attacked by Holtz's forces. A fight ensues, but is quickly ended when Darla runs over uh, most of the enemies with the car. However, she drives away, leaving Gunn, Wesley, Cordelia, and Fred with no transportation. Just as Angel finally reunites with them, he tells them what happened to him, and they realize that Holtz was one of the prophesized forces brought forward in time to kill Angel, Darla, and their son in order to stop the hope of mankind, therefore bringing about the destruction of the world. Holtz confronts Saijan for not mentioning before that Angel has a soul. It means that he must hunt him differently. He is not perturbed at killing a being with a soul. On the contrary, he realizes that killing a being with a soul will free that soul to suffer damnation for eternity. So Saijan swears that he hasn't withheld any other information, but of course he has not mentioned, the whole Darla being pregnant thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Angel locates Darla on a roof in Los Angeles. The soul of the baby is nourishing Darla, causing her to feel overwhelming love for the baby. She realizes that after she gives birth, she will no longer be able to feel that, and will forget that she even ever loved the child. And she will probably try to kill it. She begs Angel to protect the baby from her and starts to cry, and Angel comforts her. We go back to Wolfram Hart, the translators working on the Niasian scrolls, says that according to them, there will be no birth, only death. Dun dun dun.
Brighten up the episode a bit.
Oh yeah, because it hasn't been happy enough. Because it's been too happy so far. Angel takes Darla to Caritas, which is due to reopen the next day with a spell to stop violence of any kind within the club. One of the demons, who has been working at the place but was fired by Lauren for stretching out the job to charge more, heads to Holtz and tells them where they are. Back in Caritas, things are not looking good for the baby as Darla's contractions have stopped and the heartbeat has weakened. Wesley reasons that Darla, as a vampire, doesn't have a body that is designed to give birth to a child. Angel doesn't understand why the powers that be would give him a true miracle, only to let it die. Gunn suggests that the baby may not have been sent by the powers that be, but may be the thing warned of in the prophecies, and that the powers that be are trying to end what could bring about the apocalypse. Angel refuses to believe the powers that be would just kill his unborn son, and leaves to be with Darla. Angel joins Darla in Lauren's bedroom as she rests, and she tells him that she realized the baby is dying. She laments that she can't even offer her son life. Holt shows up at Caritas, and since no one knows who he is, they are not alarmed. Lauren hands him a flyer, and Holt starts to leave singing the lullaby. Lauren realizes Holt is going to attack and gets everyone out of the main area as a barrel of gasoline and a grenade fall down the stairs. The grenade goes off, and the ensuing explosion completely destroys the bar once again.
Oh, about to have their grand reopening, only for it to be destroyed again.
Yeah, Lauren's had some really shitty luck. Running to the back area is revealed that Holtz accidentally exposed a loophole in the club's magical protection. Spell prevented violence within the club, whereas Holtz attacked from the outside. As the building begins to crumble, Darla is finally told about Holtz's renewed presence. She recalls all that she and Angelus did to the man and becomes racked with guilt, saying, "Doesn't seem so funny now, does it?" Outside the club, Darla collapses in the alleyway, knowing that her child is about to die, while the others run to get the car. Angel and Fred remain behind Darla. She laments that her son is going to die in an alley, and reminds Angel that he died in an alley, and wants to say that she is sorry, and mean it, but knows that she can't. Just as she knows Angel can never forgive her, she tells him that they did so many terrible things together, saying that they can never make up for any of it. Admitting that Admitting that creating life with Angel was the only good thing they ever did together, Darla makes sure that Angel will relay that to their child before picking up a piece of wood and staking herself. Darla crumbles to dust where her sacrifice has left the baby alive and crying. Uh, Angel picks up his son, overwhelmed with feeling, when, at that moment, Holtz appears armed with a crossbow. Cordelia, Wesley, and Gunn drive up, blocked by Holtz. Angel and Holtz share a moment in which their eyes meet. He slowly lowers his crossbow. Angel, his son, and Fred make their way to the car. Sojan yells at Holtz for not killing Angel, saying that he wasn't going to do what he swore he'd do. Holtz responds that he intends to follow his promise and will show Angel no mercy. Right. So, what do you think of this episode?
Oh boy, crazy bit of a roller coaster. Still a case of all the stuff still happening with the baby, and now it's actual baby in the equation now at the end of the episode. Ugh.
Yes. Yes. So now, some stuff's going to go down in the next couple episodes. But I really like this episode. I think it's really good. I think it's kind of the high point of the season so far.
Indeed.
There's the
Just with all the interactions with everyone, even with Wolfram and Hart, sort of them trying to piece together, be somewhat of a player within the events that are happening.
Yeah, and there's some really, really nice cinematography in this episode too. Like the whole sequence where they're in the alley and the rain's coming down, like that's really good. And then like the part where Darla stakes herself and like she's like becoming dust and like Angel's holding her hand and it like slowly like falls apart. That's a really good sequence. Very good stuff. Very, very good stuff.
I think even better than that, just with the interaction with Holtz and the host, just with him singing as he was leaving and him catching on, it's like, oh shit, something bad's gonna happen.
Yeah, no, that's a great moment.
Just a wonderful little bit from there, and it's like, oh, we didn't consider this explosion.
Yes. No, it's a great moment where like cuz Holtz doesn't know what Lauren's ability are, what or his ability is, so he's just singing this lullaby and Lauren's like, "Oh shit, run." Yeah, no, it's a great moment. Uh okay. I want to know if you noticed this, but there's a line where Gavin Park and Lila are talking in the Wolfram and Hart office, and Lila says like, "Oh, they don't crucify here; it's too Christian." And then the camera switches back to Angel being held in a crucifixion pose.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the show's subtle.
Uh,
I know writers who use subtlety, and they're all cowards. Okay, so how about some international titles for this episode? So, in German, it translates as Lullaby for a Love. Not bad. And in French, they really just hit the nail on the head here. Again, no subtlety. In French, it translates as Angel's Son.
Oh, there you go. Congratulations, you papa.
Alrighty. So, if there's nothing else about this episode, next week we'll be discussing the episode Dad.
Because it's what Angel is now.
He certainly is. After Darla sacrifices herself to save the baby, Angel takes the newborn back to the hotel where he tries to figure out how to be a good father. Oh, there's gonna be some nonsense. It's gonna be good. But Angel and the gang's problems multiply when they are trapped at the hotel by several groups of enemies, including vampire cults, demon cults, satanic humans, and those just bent on kidnapping his infant son. After brushing off Sojourn, Holtz goes about Los Angeles recruiting new help for his quest to kill Angel by hiring humans whose families were also victims of vampires. starting with one bitter working class woman named Justine Cooper as his right hand person and recruiter. Dun dun dun.
Mm.
Also, we're going to see Angel be an overprotective father, and it's very good. Oh, also, the baby will get a name finally.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. And it's certainly a name. Anyway, until then, I've been Paul.
I've been Dave.